Hey, we've got the Ironman Gravy champion here. I just want to give a shout out to Base the Kid, the hardcore casual.
Maybe I'ma make it, maybe I'm not. In time we'll see. But who better than me? I don't care if you agree. I ain't saying that I'm better than anyone. But who better than me?
Welcome back to another episode of the Hardcore Casual with your boy, Base the Kid. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, an associate, a relative, an enemy, anyone in between. I appreciate. Get them to click that notification and the subscribe button as well. Now, it's been a very weak weekend of boxing, so there is one card to talk about, a card of which I did not watch apart from the main event, which, as you know, is Gervonta Davis against Rolando Romero. Yeah, I guess we can get into that in a little bit and whatever else I can find to give an opinion on. Okay, so let's talk about the fight a little bit. Now, I won't go into any real big breakdowns or whatever. Save that for Tuesday. You know the deal. The breakdown, myself and Tony the Pugilist on Undefeated Podcast channel. So yeah, mark your calendar for that. We'll get into it. What actually surprised me in this fight is Rolly was actually a bit more technically astute than normal. Like, normally he sort of comes in, barrels in, looks for, you know, sort of really concussive, hard left hooks, very hard jabs and sort of hard straight rights and straight hooks with not much setup or you know, sort of nuance in between. But in this one, he actually came out behind the jab for the first couple rounds, very thudding, very solid jab work, trying to land and sort of set up the backhand. Gervonta Davis was very cautious of the power. I guess he must have felt something a little early on, and was sort of circling the ring, sort of trying to find his angles, trying to warm himself into the fight, see what's working and what's not. The way I saw the fight, I had Rolly won the first 2 rounds. Third round was a swing, but I gave it to Gervonta Davis. Fourth round I gave to Gervonta, and I think the 5th round I gave to Rolly, and then he was winning the 6th obviously until he got stopped. It's kind of how I had it. I'd have to watch it again because I've only watched it once, early morning, you know, like half asleep, not really paying attention, too tough. I mean, it wasn't the greatest of performances by Tank, but maybe that just means that Rolly was a little better than he expected, or maybe Tank's level is not as high as it needs to be. He did well to sort of adjust in the sort of the 4th and the 5th though, he was following the straight backhand lead was his opening shot rather than jabbing with his front hand, and that seemed to offset Rolly quite a bit. But I can't remember, right? Who remembers the Super Mario Brothers film from like the early 90s? And those things that they were the little gremlin reptile things. They were called Goombas, right? Now, I don't know if it's just me, but does Rolly not remind you of one of them? Not necessarily facially, but he's got this massive body and a tiny head. It bothers me how small his head is. I don't know, is that like a birth defect? And I'm not even trying to be like rude. I just need to know why his head is that small compared to everyone else he's around. Like, obviously some people might have big heads, but his head is tiny, like in terms of what it covers. It's quite, so I'm actually really surprised, and maybe I gotta give Tank a lot more credit for being able to find the target, because again, like Rolly, his chin was up in the air the entire night, which is weird. You would think, considering the fact that you're fighting someone that's shorter than you, it would be a lot easier to tuck your chin because you've got to look like down. But no, it was just upright, but there was just not a lot of head to hit. It was, I don't know, maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm being a bit too harsh, and maybe someone in the chat can, you know, tell me if I'm, you know, if I'm a bit out of pocket on that one. But like, yeah, his head is irregularly small to me. It just looks mad. So Yeah, I mean, look, the fight was, I won't say necessarily it was entertaining. There was a couple like spurts of action here and there, but neither guy was particularly high volume. So it was very much a chess match of the power punch, who's kind of get that punch off first. Rolly hit Tank with a couple decent ones. Obviously Tank held and sort of rolled others. And it's funny because the way Tank was holding, I do agree with one thing that Rolly said in his post-fight press conference, because Tank was holding a lot, and obviously Rolly's trying to create space, and just naturally, because of the way he angles his body, a lot of the time he's in this faux Philly shell, so he's always got his arm like here. So when he's obviously trying to push off, yeah, he does use his forearm and elbow a lot to kind of get into to get someone off of him. But it was, you know, Tank initiated a lot of it, but the ref was pretty much only ever like, you know, calling Rolly's name. And there was even a time when they said that Rolly hit him low. To be honest, I didn't see a low shot. And even that, I saw Tank sort of, he almost jumped into the shot. So his feet weren't on the ground at the time when that shot landed. So if it was low, it didn't start off that way. He made it that way from what I can remember. But yeah, I mean, it was an okay fight. Like it wasn't anything special. You know, and the funny thing afterwards, Leonard Ellaby was talking about it's like the highest attendance at the Barclays Center. I think it's like 18,000 something, and I think it's 18,700 or whatever. But yeah, I mean, Tank, yeah, big star and everything, but let's not forget that Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano at Madison Square Garden did over 19,000, like just a month ago now, near enough. So the numbers ain't necessarily correlating to this big star that you claim you have with Tank, but that's for another video. Ultimately, look, it was a decent performance. He maintains his undefeated streak. He gets his knockouts back, so that's always good for marketing. And yeah, we'll see who he has next, and we'll see what's next for Rolly as well, if anyone is interested. So I saw a little bit of an interview from Deontay Wilder the other day. I think it was yesterday or the day before. He was doing an interview basically saying that part of the reason why he's not retiring is because like the game needs an exciting heavyweight. Like the heavyweight American heavyweights to kind of bring the excitement. You know, you can't have a division without sort of an American heavyweight and whatnot. Now, definitely in the past that was true, but in this day and age it's not as required. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love American heavyweights. I love like sort of American fighters in general. They're highly entertaining for the most part, but the best of the biggest guys in America right now play NFL, play basketball, some of them would be MMA, and others, I mean, I don't know, maybe some of them play NHL as well, but I would assume the best of the big athletes go to basketball and go to the NFL, because that's where the big money contracts are. So it's like the heavyweight boxing Americans, almost you get the leftovers or the guys that weren't good enough to be athletes anywhere else. That's kind of what it appears to be at the moment. Obviously you have your exceptions, but even for instance Jared Anderson, who is a tremendous heavyweight prospect, who's to say that he didn't try out in the NFL first, or he wasn't big into sports and just wasn't good enough to make the cut there? Whereas somewhere like the UK, for instance, or Germany, Ukraine, Russia, whatever, they don't have those sports as a primary. So the big guys, all they do will look to fight, because you don't really play football like Premier League or any other divisional football at sort of 6'6", 6'7" for the most part, and obviously weighing 230, 240 pounds. It doesn't really work. They might go into rugby, but most of them will probably feel like they get a bit more notoriety and money doing boxing than maybe like rugby or whatnot. So the correlation obviously isn't, I don't feel like it's the same. And then also, if he's referring to himself like being that exciting American heavyweight, yeah, he's very exciting to watch. I give him that. Like, he is, you know, because you're always on the knife edge. Oh, when's that right hand going to land? And that's always been sort of the trademark. But let's be real. We're saying, oh, without us it was devoid of excitement. Well, let's not forget, Deontay Wilder debuted in 2008, right? Vitaly Klitschko didn't give up the title for the WBC until I believe it was 2013. I believe that's correct. I think his last fight was 2011, 2012, and then he gave up the belt in 2013, retired, and decided to go be a senator or whatever he was doing in the Ukraine. Now, as a former Olympian, it should not take you 5 years to be ready to at least challenge for a world title. And at that point, there was Eddie Chambers was still around. I guess you still had, you know, sort of, you know, faded guys like Tony Thompson or whatnot, but there were American heavyweights about. You were one of them, and you're saying this was a division that was, you know, devoid of entertainment or whatnot, but why didn't you bring the entertainment there? And even after he retired and you got the belt, there was ample time for you to unify with Vladimir Klitschko or any of the other American heavyweights that were now coming out. There was ample time for all of those fights, like the credible ones, but you waited, or you chose other options. So I don't know, it felt like it was a little bit rich coming from Wilder. Like, as I said, if you was just like a, you know, like a never boxed before, just turned professional and that was it, then okay, yeah, 5 years is nothing. But with amateur background behind you as well, yeah, okay, what was it, 30 fights as an amateur, but you medaled in the Olympics, right? So realistically, coming into the game, it should only take you about 3 to 4 years to kind of get your bearings, and you were fighting very regularly. Like, at that point you was over 20 plus fights. There's absolutely no reason that you couldn't have been the guy to upset the apple cart and take that challenge, apart from the fact that you knew that you weren't good enough. So ultimately, talking about, oh, only the American heavyweights bring the excitement now, well, that's not really the truth, is it? And ultimately, your most exciting fights have been the ones that you did with a Brit. Tyson Fury is your legacy. 1 draw and 2 losses. Those were your most exciting fights. Maybe the first Luis Ortiz fight, we can say, also was an exciting one, yes. But outside of that, what else within your legacy states that, oh, the game would have been nothing without you there? So don't get me wrong, like, I'm happy that he's back, and I'm definitely, you know, want to see him in fights, but I want to see him in proper fights now. No more, no tune-ups, no top 25 guys or top 30 guys, no, like nothing but top 10 opponents from now until the time that you hang it up. If you are, you know, bringing in the excitement back to the division. If that's your angle, that's what I want to see personally. But will that happen? I'm not gonna, you know, be pessimistic and say no chance, but there does seem to be a history on that side of certain things not taking place how they should. So, you know, I'll reserve judgment. But yeah, to be fair, I'm happy you're back, and I'm happy, yep, and everything. But if Deontay was not in the game, Joshua is hella exciting. Dillian White, for all his faults, is hella exciting, because you know at any moment, you know, that uppercut could come and whatever may happen. Derek Chisora is a highly exciting fighter. Andy Ruiz, when he finally gets back in the ring, he's always good for a fun scrap. Like, there's guys around. Jared Anderson definitely coming into the game. So yeah, and I'm pretty sure that someone like Trevor Bryan and Jared Anderson would take issue with you claiming that, you know, sort of you're the only top American heavyweight that brings excitement. What's his name? Jermaine Franklin. Yeah, him as well. He would probably have something to say about that. I'm pretty sure, you know, Mr. I Walk Like a God, you know, Charles Martin, he might have something to say as well. Who knows? But yeah, like, it feels a bit like a slap in the face to the people that basically made the division live again while you were kind of just doing whatever you were doing in the US for that, you know, those 10 defenses you had, which no one gave you credit for before Ortiz. So yeah, but all right, cool, you're back. I'm just looking forward to the next fight, innit? Hopefully it's a good one. If it isn't, expect me to be back on here doing what I do, telling the truth. Oh, and I guess based off of last week, there has to be a amendment to my what I like to call King Brit series for the light heavyweights. Now I'm gonna do the full video, so I'm wondering, should I even tell you guys what my list is right now, or should I wait for the video? Nah, let me do it in the video. However, it will have changed. Yeah, I'm gonna save that for them. We will be back during the week with possibly a Femme Files, King Brit Part 2, and a predictions and also a preview of George Kambosos versus Devin Haney. So look out for that. But for now, thanks for watching. Hardcore Casual out.